Do you ever have one of those moments of, why didn't I think of this myself? I had one of those the other day. Saw a video by Drew Steinbrecher. I'll put a link in the description, and I just thought, oh, why had I not thought of that? It's just so blindingly obvious when you know. And the video was suggesting using a kid's board book, repurposing it to become an art journal and use it as an art journal. And I just thought, that is brilliant. My name's Liz Chaderton. I'm a watercolour artist based in Berkshire, but I love mixed media. And today, if you're watching it on the day I release this film, it is World Book Day. So this seems the perfect film for today. And why do I think these books are just perfect as art journals? Well, they're easily available. I got 3 for £1 in my local charity shop. You can buy blank ones online, but don't, because why would you want to do that? You might think, oh, if I buy a kid's book, I'm taking it out of the hands of a child who needs it more than I do. Every year in the UK, 12 million books end up in landfill. And for the books that get donated to charity shops, 50% get pulped. So you will be taking a book and giving it a new life. These books are designed to be dribbled on, chewed, weed on probably, goodness knows, whatever children do to them. So they are tough, and that will make them great for our journals. They are not going to bow under the weight of our mixed media. They may be damaged. This one is damaged, so you probably wouldn't want to give it to a child, but you can repair that and give it a new life as something beautiful. They're often quite limited in the number of pages. It's only got 5, so you'll be able to complete your journal and have that satisfaction of completing it very quickly. By buying them from a charity shop, you are giving money to the charity. You are saving yourself money, you're stopping stuff going into landfill. I mean, it's just win-win-win. So what I want to do is show you first how you take that sort of book and turn it into something ready to journal in, like this. And then I'll show you how I've finished it and how I've sealed it, how I've trimmed it, how I've repaired the spine, things like that, so that you can get going. So just before we start, I want to give you a bit of a close-up. I'll show you how I did the cover, and then I just experimented inside, to be honest, to see what it was like working in one of these little books on such a small format. I've done a bit of collage, painting, stenciling, stamping, well, all sorts. I've used little bits of washi tape, I've used a little bit of a napkin, I've used a sticker, a stamp, and then on this last page I'd made some papers using Japanese marbling technique, so I used those up. That was just a start, and I certainly plan to do lots more. So what I want to do is first of all show you how to prepare the board book, and I've got one I have almost finished here, and I will just show you finishing touches on that one. What you need is a board book, and you can get these from charity shops, thrift stores, what do you call them, op shops, whatever you call them. I was brought up never to deface books, but we're not defacing them. We're using them and making them into something beautiful. We need our book, we'll need some sandpaper, and we'll need some gesso. Gesso is a primer, and we'll need that. We'll need a sharp knife, and I'll tell you the other things as we go through. Children's board books are, by their nature, very sturdy. They are just pleasingly chunky, I reckon, but they are designed to withstand children chewing them, dribbling on them, vomiting on them, pooing on them. So they are super glossy usually. Therefore, we need to prepare them so they can actually accept our media. First thing I would do before we do anything else is sort out the spine, because as we start to add gesso and collage, this will get thicker and thicker and it will not stay nicely flat. It up, you can see the construction. You need to do is take a sharp knife and you need to cut along this crease, so at the front. Don't cut the whole spine off, because what we will do is when it is finished, there we go, when this is finished and it is slightly thicker, we will tape that up again and it will still lie flat, and then we can collage or paint over the top and disguise that repair. So that's your first thing to do. Second thing is just to get some sandpaper and take the shine off. And this just gives a key to the surface. It allows our media to grip. Really wouldn't skip this part, tempting as it is. And you need to do that with every page. Oh, I feel very sorry. Sorry, girls. When you've done that, just wipe off the extra dust that you will have generated. Now we need some gesso. This happens to be Pabio. Any gesso will be good. You just need an old brush and then simply apply your layer of gesso. Now, how many layers you're going to actually need is hard to say, because different gessos have different opacity, and partly it will depend on your sort of mixed media methodology. Even if you always start with a layer of collage, I would still add some gesso because it will give a better grip and protection. If you usually start with paint, then you'll want a fairly white surface, so you might need a couple of layers. If your book is particularly bright and your gesso is particularly thin, then you might need 3 layers. Only you can judge that. I'd start off with a couple. It really doesn't take long. Just doing the spine, so when we come back to it, it's got a bit of preparation on it. You can leave that to dry naturally. You can use a hairdryer to speed things up. If you did the whole book at a time, which is certainly possible, then what you can do is stand it up like this to dry, because what you don't want is all the pages to stick together. If you want an interesting texture in your gesso, you could deliberately stick the pages together and then unpeel them, and you will get this texture here. I don't. Oh, shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't worry about painting the edges of the pages, and I wouldn't worry if you get anything on them either, because I'll show you what to do with that. Don't forget to wash out your brush in soap and water before it dries, because once it's dried, that gesso isn't going anywhere. So preparing the book is as simple as that. That first layer of gesso is drying. So while that's happening, let's have a look at this little one that I've already had a little go at as a prototype. Haven't done the cover, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. So say you've collaged and you've got all these leftover bits. You just need to trim those off. You can lie it face down, sharp knife, and then trim the edges. Into the centre, you'd probably be better off, oh dear, trimming from the front. Not like that. But the alternative is to grab your sandpaper again and to sand off bits. This works better if the papers are quite thin. If you try and cut it off with a pair of scissors, it's just a little bit awkward, so you're probably better off with a knife. Now, because these are designed for children, you'll notice they've always got rounded corners, so you can trim those from the front or the back, whichever's just the most convenient for you. And that immediately makes such a difference to the page. You may find that your pages are sticking together. It's a bit inevitable with some sort of mixed media. To finish them off, there are 2 alternatives to stop them sticking. Quick one is to use a white candle. So this is a tea light. You know, you've been to IKEA, you've bought 50 of these jolly things, and that's a lifetime supply for you and your grandchildren, for goodness sakes. Get one of those and you can rub it over the surface just lightly, and that will simply stop it sticking together. So easy. Wouldn't suggest this for anything that is particularly precious, and it will potentially crack. So if you did that on paper, it's not necessarily the most flexible of finish. But these are thick boards, so that is such an easy way just to stop everything sticking. A slightly better way would be to use a clear wax. These are designed to go over chalk paint. It's clear, it won't yellow. It's a soft paste. Let's find one that is finished. I'm not going to do anything else to this. And you simply rub it into the surface in a very thin layer. I like to use my fingers because then I can feel where I've been. Use gloves if you don't like the feel of it, or that you are sensitive to any of the ingredients in the wax, or use a brush. And you will see it slightly deepens the colours, which I rather like. And then we need to let that dry. And at that point, we can either buff it with a clean, lint-free cloth, and it will give a slight sheen. We can leave it matte. And again, that will totally protect the surface. It waterproofs the surface, and it will stop it sticking together. Now I want to show you what to do with the cover, and I don't want this wax to stick together. So what is incredibly useful is a bit of non-stick paper. And this is simply the inside packet from cereal. You know, the bag that your cornflakes comes in. Makes the most brilliant non-stick paper. So we can pop that in there, and I will remember to open it up again later. You can see that holds nicely together. But can you see how much the spine has expanded? I cut that just as I showed you before, and we need to protect it. You could take the whole thing off and have the spine unprotected or uncovered. It's fine, it won't fall to pieces. But I think it looks nicer if we cover it. We have a few choices. We could just use masking tape on there. We could use, let's find some washi tape. If you happen to have bookbinders tape, well, lucky old you, that's good. I've got some sticky cloth tape that would be good. You could use, let's think, something like gaffer tape or duct tape, but that's quite thick. Personally, I don't want to use masking tape because the glue over time dries out, and I think that would affect the stability of the book. I think I will use some of this cloth tape or some of the washi tape. But maybe either I'm going to end up covering it up because I could collage over that, because I don't want lurid pink on this. But maybe if I plan my cover first, then I might have a tape that coordinates and fits in. We'll see. My plan for the cover is that because it is International Book Week, I want to celebrate books and libraries on the front of my repurposed book. So I have got an old book. You can see the binding has totally fallen to pieces. And I used this in another collage, and someone was really critical. You should have given that to a child. Oh, it's shocking, damaging books. You can't give that to a child. It's useless. Far better to repurpose it and use it for something lovely. Now, I've been thinking about libraries and words and books. I have a very, very old dictionary. Well, not so old to be antique. This was my father's dictionary, and before that it was his mother-in-law's and my grandmother's. When's it from? Reprint in 1961. So this isn't antique and precious, it's just obsolete. I could be clever, couldn't I? Wonder if the page that has library on it is here. It is, look. Oh. And isn't it interesting? Liberty is next to library. I love books because they take us to new worlds, new places. They give us new perspective, obviously teach us things, new things. So this is why extreme regimes are frightened of books and books get burnt and banned. So the moment you start hearing about someone banning and burning books, be suspicious. Books and words, and try and get that bit with libraries showing is great. And I was thinking books are maps to a new world. So again, I've got an old edition of maps. Look, fully revised for 2001. I feel that London will have changed since then. So again, I feel no guilt about using an old map book. And you know, who uses A to Z now when you've got Google Maps or maps on your phones? Our books are taking us to new places. They're teaching us new words, new things. They're opening our eyes. That's the story I want to tell on the front here. What else can I find? I have a bag of scraps, and I'm hoping in here will be something that says about different countries and different people. I have some Japanese papers. I know they're Japanese, but none of them, apart from that one, looks particularly oriental. Oh, that's a bit of very old newspaper. You can see how yellow it is. That's from 1950s. Perhaps I should put that in because books tell us about the past. Aha, look, that's what I want. Well, that's a lot of paper to go on one tiny little book. The bit I would be careful about is putting a thin paper over the spine because that has to move. Don't want to put anything too thick there. Right, if those are my papers I'm going to be using, have I got... Oh, what about that blue? I've got another very wide washi tape. That one actually. So what we have to do is put this into place. This tape, look, it's got mountains on. I said that books take us to far away places. So I am sticking it to the bit that covers the spine and then just going to gently, not too tight, just fold it round the front, just fold it round the back like that as well. Sure that everything still opens and that it all lies flat. See those creases there? So the book will bend in that place as well. So just don't put anything too thick over it. Right, you can trim the edges off either with little scissors. So we have repaired the spine and the book is lying flat. Excellent. Now we can make our decisions about what we want to do in terms of covering it. I personally prefer ripped edges to my papers rather than cut edges on the whole. So I am just ripping bits up and seeing what I like. See, I was wondering, maybe put that round there. If you lie it flat, it will give you an idea, but do remember you've got the spine in there. And I quite like the idea of them being layered like that because it looks like the pages of a book as well. The glue I'd recommend that you use is matte gel medium. I would also suggest just putting in a little protector sheet with those pages. If you've done a really complicated layout, take a photo before you move it off. This one isn't. I can trim off the edges if I need to, but might as well line that one up so that it's easy, and put the matte gel over the top as well as underneath, because then it acts as a sealant and a protector. And as always, it's the corners that tend to lift, so just go careful with those. So you want, for the spine, try and choose a paper that's quite flexible because it is going to have to move, and quite thin. But just go careful with that. And I'm just putting that matte medium all over there. I have no problem about being sticky. If you don't like being sticky, then just do the front, let it dry. This dries in maybe 5–10 minutes. Use a hairdryer on it, and then you can carry on. Old newspaper, that was my history, wasn't it? I'm going to have a bit of map. Just going to do a rough trim on this while it's drying. Yeah, something like that. I can just prop that up to let it dry, so it won't take long. And again, need to wash that brush out. This is just about dry, and I wanted to show you how much it had covered with just one coat. You can definitely see the writing through it, but it's not bad. And if you were going to collage through the whole lot, it would be good enough. But I think I will put on another coat, because obviously I've mucked it up and touched it in places because I was in a hurry. If you end up with strange marks you didn't like, or the pages stuck together and you don't like the texture, once it's dry, just give it a gentle sand. And the other thing is, if you don't like it on the edges, you want those all to be clean, you can just sand that off as well. Now, I probably wouldn't do that now. I'd wait till you filled the entire book and then clean off the edges, because inevitably you're going to get stuff on there. So let's just show you what 2 coats of gesso looks like. If you're a watercolourist and you think, I could use watercolour ground instead of gesso, I would suggest still gessoing to start with, because that seals it, and gesso is a lot cheaper than watercolour ground. So I would save your watercolour ground just for the areas you want to put watercolour on. That's not bad. It'll dry slightly more transparent, but 2 coats is the way to go. Give or take, this is dry. I am very impatient because this is my little prototype and I really want to see it finished. So again, we need to trim things off. The final thing, having trimmed it off, you might want to do is just sand the edges. That can clean up the edges of the entire book if you want to. And there you have your little finished, repurposed child's board book. I'm going to wax the cover now and really just enjoy the fun of having repurposed a little book and thinking in a different way. It just brings out your creativity. I love it. What I think these might be fun to use for as well is for samples. So say you're exploring mixed media or stenciling or lettering or whatever, you could turn one of these into a little sample book, and that would be really cute. Hope you have a go at this, and I would love to see what you do with them.